What's up, and welcome back to Talking Nutrition. Today we have Pia back on the podcast on a road trip. What's up, Pia? How are you?
Yeah, hello. One of the best places to do a podcast is in the car. I don't know if people need to know that, but in the cars you actually have pretty good sound quality. So at the time being, I'm at my cabin. So I thought the best now is to go to the car and do the podcast there because the cabin is full of like family and children and yeah. So in the car, ready for a good talk about nutrition.
Great. Even better would be like driving the car. You know what I mean? Like maybe not like sound wise, but if I think of like, I've done this where you're thinking about things, or I've even done like practice runs of my presentations like in the car. For some reason, like while you're driving, it just flows better. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, maybe because you can't like do anything else than to just sit there with your thoughts. And that would also be incredibly satisfying because you're driving and you're doing a podcast. So I can agree with that. Minus the sound. I think it would have been a bit annoying for the people listening.
I think we're onto something there. That's no, I think it's good. It's good to be out for the weekend, right? Because like, how long are you there for?
Until Sunday, and then a quick trip back home, and then down again. I was just saying to you that also May is like a chaos when it comes to time off, also fridager, off time days. So I feel like it's just a bit of work and then spare time, a bit of work and then spare time, which is really, really nice. But yeah, work suffers a bit. So I'm kind of back and forth in all of May because of all the fridager, planleggingsdager in kindergarten and that stuff. And I was just asking you, like, did you know that it was time off yesterday? And you were like, no, normal work day for me.
Yeah, because it was like, was it May 1st or 5th or something? It was one. And then today...
yeah, it was Kristi Himmelfartsdag, and today it's just planleggingsdag, where the kindergarten is closed, so we have to take care of our own children.
And then next week we got May 17th, so we got a lot of festivities over here.
Will you be wearing bunad?
I don't have one yet, but I do want to get one eventually. I feel like I have to now, at some point.
Yeah, it's a really nice, it's a nice thing to have. Expensive, but nice thing to have.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that you will?
I actually won't, because I will then be pregnant in week like 33, and the last thing on my mind that som jeg har lyst til, that's putting on my bunad. So no.
That totally makes sense. Cool. Yeah, it's hard sometimes because obviously sometimes you get like other people almost like expecting you to then also take off, like because you and me, like we have slightly different kind of work, basically there's always stuff to do. So it's like, well, any day could be a work day, and we much rather don't have the day off because of this whole load on, in the background basically. But that's okay. We also need to take some time off and recharge, and it's been busy,
Yeah. And that's actually something I both not hate, but like I dislike it, but I also like it with having children, that it forces me to like get in the rhythm of taking more time off, because as we talked about before we started to record, we need the time off. Of course we do, everybody does, but it's a bit hard to take it when you run your own company. But when you have children and a family, you sort of have to, and that's been really good for me actually. And I'm also more effective than when I'm working. It's I choose to look at it as a good thing, although sometimes of course you miss the freedom of just doing whatever you want when you want to. Yeah, there's pros and cons with everything.
Definitely. I mean, we kind of talked about this too, and what we'll talk about today is thinking long term, and basically the 3 things that will help you be successful long term. But a big part of that is also including real life, being able to go on those trips, not seeing nutrition as like this whole separate thing, but like there's always, something when it comes to this whole like lifestyle change, there's always something that's going to come up,
Yes, definitely. And I think whether it's nutrition coaching, or you sign up for like my app and you're going to do like a training program for 3 months, people are like, I'm not sure if it fits then because I'm doing that, and maybe I should wait to the fall. But the thing is that it's never a perfect time, and you will always be forced to like make your everyday life and your habits fit with the training program or the nutrition coaching. and you're going to have to like face your bad habits at some point anyway, so you should just like embrace it from the start. And I remember that for me as well when I started working with you. Although I wouldn't admit it to myself, I think I like thought that, okay, I'm going to do this process, and when I'm finished with that, then I'm finished with it. But of course, the goal is to like do some kind of transformation so that when you're finished, if you choose to like finish it, you take different choices and you live your life in another way, so that the results you gain, you keep them and you keep evolving. And that's what I think people forget when they start like collaborations with trainers and coaches, that they think that it's like it's a 3 months kind of a thing and then I'm finished. But that's not how it works.
True. I think you brought up a lot of good points there. Where to start? Because, yes, absolutely, it's never the right time. It's New Year's, and then it's Easter at some point, and then now in May we have like a holiday every week almost. Then it's summer, and then it's not a great time, and then it's this and that, and then your birthday, and then your friend's birthday, and then your mom's birthday. There's like stuff all the time. Then it's Halloween. Then we get Thanksgiving for our American friends and Canadians. Then we have Christmas. So like there's always something. And I just had a call today with someone who wanted to start coaching, and she's like, "Okay, before we begin, what happens when I go on vacation? Like, can I still do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course."
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense that people think that, because it's like, okay, hey, I want to lose the weight, I want to build the muscle or improve my fitness, whatever it is. I want this to be the perfect time. It makes sense. It comes from a good place too, because they want to fully dedicate to the process, which I love. But we can't forget that this whole lifestyle change thing is, like you said, it's not a temporary kind of block of a few weeks or months. It's like, it's a chapter of your journey, right? After which you're going to continue. But it's like, you're going to have the social settings, you're going to have the vacations, so you want to keep going after that. And to your point, with the muscle gain phases, the fat loss phases, those are temporary, of course, right? A fat loss phase is, maybe let's call it 12 weeks or something. Muscle gain, a couple months at least. Those things kind of come and go. That's a seasonality of nutrition. But then the habits that you establish along the way, that's going to have to be part of you and part of who you are, your identity, for this to last. And I think sometimes we forget, because you're not just going to the gym to create the result, right? Or you're not just going to lose, you're not just going to diet to lose the fat. It's like, you're now becoming the next version of yourself. You're becoming the person who is lean and strong and fit, and who can run a 10K, whatever, and who can do all these cool things, and who manages their stress, and who sleeps enough, and who eats healthy, and all those kind of things. Plus,
all the stuff.
all the stuff, but also who is able to go on vacations and be flexible and be okay with it. And someone who doesn't think all or nothing. And all that stuff takes time to get to that point,
Yes, definitely. And for me, that was like the biggest challenge where I needed the most help, because when I'm working from home and managing my own meals mostly, it's easy. But as soon as I go to the cabin, or I go on weekend, or I eat with my family, I tend to like let go in some way. I think it's my old habits from when I was a child, or yeah, I don't know. But that's sort of that was my trouble areas where I needed help, so that I can maintain my results, and also, most importantly, feel good about the choices I make, also when I'm not following like a rigid plan, but I'm just living my life, also enjoying life, but at the same time being proud of the choices I make, and having a feeling of some sort of purpose, and knowing that I'm on a path to who I want to be, even though I'm on vacation. I think a lot of people go on vacation and then feel like crap after 4 weeks, because they've taken so many bad choices, which I understand. It's hard. So the goal has to be to like manage the balance of, okay, I'm on vacation, living my best life, hanging with my family, enjoying myself, but at the same time not giving fully into my bad habits just because I'm chilling, because the feeling afterwards is not like necessarily a good place to be. So the balance is always the goal. But I don't know, I think people think the balance word is boring, but that's like that's the gold mine.
Definitely. Because we mentioned that we're going to talk about the 3 things of long-term success, like let's tie this into the first one, and that's just time, right? It's going to take time. You're going to have to take time to learn all these kind of things. Damn, you bring up a lot of good points today. I have to like pick apart like which one to start with. Okay, so to that last point that you just mentioned, because it's top of mind. You mentioned balance, and that is boring. I think we need to practice moderation, and I think being able to practice moderation in general, right, most of the time, is the thing that allows us to live a happy life. And that's basically with anything, right? Too much or too little of anything, like it's not good, right? We know that. Is it enjoyable to have the pizza, to have the drinks, etc.? Of course, I love that stuff too. It's not that I don't, you know, but too much of it will make you feel like crap. It will. We've all been there. I know I have. Again, I also have had those moments. So it's like moderation is key. It's a saying that you hear all the time, but it really is. It's such an important skill, but it's going to take time to be able to actually practice moderation. Moderation also does not have to mean that you restrict yourself completely, because that's also not healthy, I think. That's also not sustainable. And when it comes to balance and flexibility, it all sounds great, and people all want to have balance. People want to be able to be flexible. But what I think is that a lot of people, when they say balance, when they say flexibility, they kind of say they want that, but they much rather see that being in favor of flexibility, right? So we're kind of masking what it really means there. And that's where we need to be honest too. Like, it takes time to figure that out, right? To go with that middle ground.
And I don't know, my problem has always been that when I devote myself to et opplegg, for example, coaching with you, I'm within like this plan and it feels safe and I'm in control and I'm tracking. And that is motvekt. That's the plan, it's rigid. And then you have me outside the plan that can do whatever I want for a week. And that's when I go full mayhem, eat the pizza because now's the time. Next week I'm gonna have to report to Johan again, so I better take this chance now to eat the pizza. That's like how I traditionally was thinking, but you kind of taught me to think på en annen måte. But I think that's why also a lot of people have trouble devoting themselves to like a plan, because they think that that's how it's gonna impact their head. And sometimes it can. But that's why I appreciated working with you so much, because it taught me to follow a plan, but at the same time have movements in how you take choices and how you, forhold with food. So it's still an evolving thing, but trying to not go overboard even though I'm not on the plan. That's sort of also like the mission now when I'm pregnant. I'm trying not to like count calories and stuff. That's sort of harder. Also, it's easier to be in control and have food freedom when I'm tracking, because then I know what I get in terms of fat, carbs, and protein, micronutrients. But now when I just go by feel, which is sort of like the right thing, people think that's the right thing, intuitive eating, it's harder because I can only rely on like my impression, my feelings, my hunger. And of course, it's good to rely on your hunger, but it's actually harder to be flexible when I'm not tracking. And that's maybe me being fucked up, but that's I find it a bit hard.
Yeah. I think these are all conversations that we just need to be able to have. Because that is the plan. I think when people think, hey, I'm going to have a nutrition coach program, fitness app, coach, like PT, whatever, you know, that it's this piece of paper and like life needs to follow this piece of paper. Yeah, sure. Like that's like, let's call it the plan or a plan or whatever you want to see, like protocol. Let's call it protocol. But the long-term plan, in quotes, is something that includes the moments where you cannot stick to that. And that's a big one. And to anyone listening, like if you have a coach, if you have a PT, if you work through a app like Pia's, for example, it's like, sure, like these things are programmed to work a specific way, but you not being able to stick to that is okay. Like we all have those moments, And the whole thing when it comes to like making this like long-term like sustainable is being able to troubleshoot. And that's where, again, it's going to take time. We need to learn from those moments. And like Pia said, like, hey, okay, well, let's actually have this conversation and say, I have these thoughts, I have these feelings, I actually have a hard time controlling myself here and there. Okay, let's figure that out. That's the biggest one. I think we need to be able to talk about this stuff, whether it's on a podcast like this, with someone else, or even just with yourself. Like, think these things through instead of thinking on or off plan. Because like you said as well, it's going to be all or nothing. It's going to be, hey, I'm on plan or I'm enjoying. But healthy eating and enjoying should be combined. Like, that's what makes it sustainable.
Yeah, definitely. And that's when you forced me. Like, I remember the first time I logged, I've been on a getaway with my boyfriend and said, I completely messed up, but let's start over again. And you were like, let's go back and see why you messed up. What can we learn from that? And that was painful, but at the same time, very, very valuable. And that also made me talk to my boyfriend about it. You know, usually I just shove away my bad choices with food and just move on back to the plan. But now I've become better at like looking at why did I do that? Okay, I was stressed. We had an argument. I don't know. It was valuable, and it's made me like have a better relationship with food, as a better balance now than before.
Which really plays into the second ingredient for long-term success, and that's continuous effort. Because of course we need to give it the time. Time can pass, but without effort, right, we're still not getting anywhere. And that's the whole point of that process. And I know it's difficult. And this even like, it doesn't just play into fitness or nutrition. It's anything really. It's like being able to reflect and look in the mirror, right? And again, whether you talk with someone else about this or with yourself and you do some journaling, meditation, whatever, like actually doing that, like that inner work, that self-reflection, the stuff that we kind of much rather push away. Let's be honest, we kind of all would rather just push it away. But like, that's where you can grow, you know, like that's your weakness. And that's good to know, because if you know your weakness, you can improve them. And I think it's okay to overeat and undereat. And it's okay to completely just miss the plan, or, you know, not work out for the week because you feel like crap, or like whatever it may be. And yes, we got to pick it up right after that. And you see this online especially, right? Hey, don't worry, like just pick it back up. Yeah, true. But not without learning from that bump in the road. Because if we do not learn, it's going to happen again. And then it's going to happen again. And life will always keep teaching you the same lesson until you actually learn.
Yeah,
and then you'll
and that's
improve.
why. And now when I go on like weekend getaways, we're at the cabin, vacations, I'm sort of more like exciting. I get to like challenge myself on these things once again, rather than before where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go, happen what may happen, and then I come back to my normal life, and then it's gonna feel better. And obviously that's not a super good feeling when you're on a vacation. Of course, it's okay, it's just a week, and you can go nuts, and it's no problem. But it's more like exciting and a better feeling for me, at least, to try to go on a vacation and still have like a purpose also when it comes to training and nutrition. And that can be like to eat healthy, or it can be to like enjoy myself and just like really focus on not tracking at all. It can be to have a goal of not training, or maybe training every day, but like sort of always having like a plan also when you go on a vacation or you're entering like a different environment. Maybe it can be a work travel or something. Just always having a purpose. And some people may say and think that, oh, can't you just chill? Can't you just lower your shoulders and just be? But for me, it's just, it makes sense to always like, I don't know, I find calmness in having a purpose and just having fun with that, rather than just pushing everything away and try to just be, because I'm not a just be kind of person, I think. I need to like be moving somewhere and feeling like I'm evolving also when I'm on a vacation. Maybe I'm weird, but I don't know, we work in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, my initial response is saying like, hey, you're not weird. This is a little unrelated of an analogy, but I wanted to bring it up because I was thinking about this recently. I'll tie this back into what you just mentioned. But there's a guy here in Tromsø who basically kind of dresses like a cowboy, and he'll just be in the middle of the street, like the main street, you know, and he'll just start dancing. and he's like line dancing. He puts in his earphones and he'll just dance, and he does it at the harbor and like all these different places, and it is kind of funny to see. And then anytime I see him, I look around and see other people, and they're kind of laughing. And I had this thought. I was like, okay, so people probably laugh because they think like, hey, he's the weirdo, But what if those other people are the weirdos? Because this dude is really just like, he doesn't care. Like, he just goes and enjoys. Yeah, he's living his life. He just dances. He loves the music. He's, and he really just doesn't care about anything else or anyone else says or thinks, which is always like more of something we want to strive for, right? So going back to what you said, like I said, I'll tie it back to what you said. It's like, you can still want to have somewhat of a control or have at least a mindful approach to nutrition and fitness, and even just like moving around or whatever you want to do for that weekend, without other people having to think something about that. You know what I mean? And of course, this goes back into like also kind of sharing things and, explaining why. But at the end of the day, I think we all should be able to do what we think works for us. But it is funny that as soon as you're the person making the healthy choices, or you're trying to at least be mindful, you're the odd one out. Generally speaking.
Yeah, and of course it depends on what sort of people you got around you and how much of your journey that you share. But I think maybe especially as women, we sort of see ourselves through others and how our actions affect other people, especially in a family setting and stuff. And I mean, I don't know, maybe we think a bit more about it than guys sometimes. I'm not sure, but also you are living your life for you, and don't let anyone tell you that something is wrong or bad if it feels good for you. But of course, at the same time, always like question why you do what you do, how is it serving you. For example, tracking, that's a good example. For some it's like super, like you do it almost all the time and you love it. Like other people, they can't do it because it makes them like stress, and they have a hard time with food because of it. So you just have to accept that there's different solutions to how you live your nutrition and training life. So your answer, your faucet is different than mine, and that's like totally okay.
Yeah.
So we have time, and we have effort, and what's the third one?
Patience.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
It's a hard one. It is, because I get this a lot too, and I do get it because I was in that position myself, and I mean, this is what I help people with. But we got people join us after sometimes multiple decades of trying to do all these different diets, and let's say 20 years, for example, or 10 plus even. That's a long time. Or even if it's 5 or whatever, but yet we go into a fitness program and we tend to think, hey, I'm going to be like shredded in like 6 weeks, I'm going to lose all the weight right away. I'm going to, everything is like smooth sailing from here. But it's not. In reality, it's not. Because nutrition on paper is simple. Training on paper is simple. Like, we know how things work. We know how to get results. That's not the thing. But it's actually changing your habits, going through long periods of time of putting in action, sometimes not seeing the results until later, making those mistakes, failing, learning from your failures, then getting better over time. Like, there's no shortcut here. There really isn't. Which even ties into like how long it takes to create a new habit. Which, based on the research, is like 66 days on average, but that's an average based on a range from 18 to like 258, I think it was. So that's massive. So how long is it going to take? We don't know, but it's going to take a while. And I think we need to be patient.
Yeah, that must be hard as a coach, because I can imagine that when some people are reaching out to you and saying, okay, let's do it, they pay the bill, you feel like, okay, now I've done this, the responsibility is with Johan, the job is done, the bill is paid, he has 3 months, and then I'm going to be finished. A part of your job, maybe with some people, has to be like making them understand that this is when it starts. Absolutely.
I mean, I'll say this, like that's also why we don't do 3 months, but we do 6 minimum. That's one rule that we have in place for that reason, because we know it takes time to create your results and to change your habits and stuff. but we also help you maintain those results, which is huge, right? But yeah, absolutely. But I think it comes down to communication, connecting with your client, just going back and forth and knowing, hey, okay, cool. So these are the things we got to work on first. And we always explain this beforehand. And it's always like, hey, like we're going to get you some wins in the short term. Like there's a real good chance people do lose body fat and build muscle in the first few weeks already. I see it all the time. However, that big transformation, usually it takes a while, you know? I've been sharing a lot on Instagram. It's like a year plus sometimes, even longer. And I think going back to patience, like we do need to keep that in mind. If we've been struggling with something for a long time, you can fix that like quicker, I would say, which is a good news. But you can't reverse, I don't know, like 10 years of certain habits in like 4 weeks, you know?
Right. What's like your take on, the TV show The Biggest Loser? I don't know if that's still it's still on, but yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Because I think a lot of people see shows like that and they think like, okay, it can be done quickly if I just put in maximum effort and then some, it's gonna happen quickly. And of course, we don't see much of those people after the show has ended, and we all know that a lot of people tend to gain back the weight again. Maybe that's where it's from, like the impatience, alltså utålmodigheten da, som vi har.
I think we're wired to see immediate results, or we want to see immediate results. Like we want to have that instant reward, that instant gratification. However, for fitness and health, we need to be patient, and we can only get that delayed gratification, right? I think that's a big one. I think mainstream media and social media and all the crazy crash diets and all those kind of things out there, and marketing and false promises and all that like plays into that. And maybe also even, I don't know, maybe even like the before and after photos, you know? Which is why I try to share the story and explain how long it takes at the different phases and all these kind of things. But it's like, you can see a 20-kilo weight loss transformation, but hey, like that can take a long time, right? That could be 2 years or something. But you only see those 2 photos. So maybe that's even one of them. Like, it's probably a combination of things.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you about this. We haven't talked about this before we started recording. But as a delayed gratification, you have to learn to appreciate that when you work with nutrition and training. But at the same time, working as a trainer for a long time, I can see the value of like showing the client pretty quickly that this is working. I mean, if you like get that carrot pretty early in the process, that's pretty valuable for people because you see that, okay, I'm working hard and it's working, it's showing. And a part of that process for some in a bigger degree now is like sort of the slankemedicin, also the medicine you can get and take it that helps you lose weight. Do you have any thoughts on that sort of medication? It's sort of like a digression. Digression, is that an English word? Digression. But
Yeah.
I thought about it coming into this, and that I wanted to ask you about it.
That's a good one.
Because it is good for people that has struggled for a long time to like get quick results.
Yeah.
Det är en god thing.
There's a lot of sides to this coin. So here's what I think about those kind of solutions, because you're talking about Ozempic, right? This is something completely new, something that it works, right? How does it work? Well, you don't get hungry, you don't eat, you lose weight. But okay, either way, it works, right? It's not a magic pill, though. I think, objectively speaking, that there is a time and place for this. There are people who are so overweight that losing weight as quick as possible, you know, when we're talking maybe like 50 kilos or something, you know, like 20 plus maybe even, like, let's say 20 plus maybe, just to have a number in mind. Objectively speaking, there will be almost an immediate benefit to losing weight, because having that much body fat on your body is very inflammatory. It's very unhealthy by definition. This does not go into, you know, the whole, you know, health at every size thing. Objectively speaking, we know that based on the research, right, having that much body fat, a lot of inflammation directly plays into your life expectancy. So I think There's absolutely a time and place for these types of medicine. However, I don't know how it is in Norway. I can't speak to that. I do know that in the US, it's probably not regulated enough to where it's very available, I think. And I think people are going to jump on it because it's this new magic solution to where, yeah, it's going to work. But I always want to know what happens afterwards, because you're going to have to come off of that at some point. What happens afterwards? I know people who have done gastric bypasses, who gained weight afterwards. Why? Because they didn't change their habits. They kept eating the exact way they did before. There's probably other medications and those kind of things too. But it's like, if we do not tackle and address the root cause of those actual problems, why did we gain all this weight, right? Why do we have these habits? What do we need to do to get you to a place to where at least it's not going to come back? Make sense? That needs to be addressed. And this could be a whole different podcast too, but it's like, it even speaks to medication in general. People going to the doctor, etc., being treated for symptoms. Sure, that's great, and it needs to be there. We need medicine. However, why did we end up in that place? Shouldn't we look at that? You know what I mean? So I think, to kind of, long story short, this one, I think there's a time and place for it. I don't think people should just jump on it for no reason. Unless you're really in a bad place. And then there's going to have to be somewhat of a coaching situation where you're working with someone to address your lifestyle, your habits, etc., who can also help you step off of it. Because I'm not familiar with medication, so I don't know how that process would be, how you would feel, those kind of things. But there needs to be guidance there. There needs to be some help, because what we do know is that when people are left to their own devices, especially when it comes to medicine and stuff, it's not always applied the way it's supposed to, and then we're going to run into issues, I think.
Yeah, I also there's a lot of side effects we don't know that much about. Of course, they say the producers, also the people that makes the medicine, says that when you go off, you of course have to like change your eating and exercise habits as well. But I agree, like if you really, really need it, it can be a good starting as a help when you start, but it has to be a part of like changing your habits when it comes to diet and nutrition, and not just a resting pillow that you think is gonna change your life. Because the consequences of then losing the weight and then going back gaining all the weight, that's a bad roller coaster to be on.
Yeah, and if you rebound fast, you may even create more fat cells. So it's like, I guess, again, there's probably time and place for it. But I would really want to see, hey, has this person, tying this into this podcast, have they put in the time and the patience and the effort to really go through a process that works, that we know works, right? Again, on paper, we know how to do this stuff. But it's adhering to the plan. It's learning how to include that in your life. Like, that's the hard part. But have we done that? If yes, and it's really, right, it's just impossible for whatever reason, sure, then maybe there's a time and place for that, and maybe we should consider that. There are people who really struggle, and they have functional issues, and there are other things going on in the body where they're just not responding. I have a few of them, and we're getting them to a good spot now through some other approaches, and that goes beyond, normal fat loss and those kind of things, But still then, like, I don't think I'd be using it. I don't think it's necessary for most people. And I'm saying like not probably like, again, to make up a number, like let's say 99% of the people, right? But that guidance needs to be there. That's the key.
Yeah, and that's maybe where it's I don't know that much about it either, but I don't think there's a lot of guidance around using those kind of medications. But it probably depends a lot on your doctor as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay,
Amazing.
so time, effort, and patience is the three core things to think about for long-term success.
Yes.
And you're never finished. You're never like, you like work on this for 3 months and then you're finished. It's like an ongoing process. I have my stuff. Johan, you probably have yours. and it's just enjoying the journey and trying
It
to have
is.
fun with it, and like have sort of like a balance through the year, and see stuff, not problems, not as like problems, but rather like challenges and possibilities for you to like, yeah, grow.
Yeah, definitely. And even paying attention to those moments where you are flexible. Like, how do you feel about that? Because if you feel guilty for having a fun meal, okay, that's also something to address, you know?
Mm.
Because we should actually be okay with it at some point. Like, we can have it. Eating something in quotes like unhealthy doesn't right away like make you unhealthy. It's like, hey, we can have that one meal and then be okay about it, you know? I mean, when we met up recently, we had tapas and we had great food, you know? Did I had a whole lot of fats that evening? Yeah, it was great. Did I overshoot my calories for that day? Yeah, I did. But that's okay, you know? And I knew I was going to make that choice, right? I felt okay. By the way, no damage done. I didn't gain weight or whatever, but like still, it's also being able to just allow yourself to enjoy and not go overboard. But again, it's a lesson. It's a process, and
It's
it's
definitely
going
a
to take some
process.
time.
And yeah, yeah. Men ironisk nok, I found that the people that's been tracking and have knowledge about food and these stuff, they are the ones that are the most balanced, because they know that okay, one meal, one weekend, it's not gonna have, it doesn't affect anything. So yeah, we had our tapas and we loved it.
It was great. That being
Mm.
said, I'll let you escape the car.
It was actually pretty nice to sit there in peace and quiet for some time. But yeah, going back to the kids and the family.
Nice. What are you doing this weekend?
Just chilling, going for boat rides, having barbecues, and just yeah, enjoying not having that much plan. Also, not having any plans, just being. That's my agenda for the weekend.
That sounds great. That sounds
What
good.
about you?
Tonight we want to make like a nice dinner. I still have to like figure out like what I'm gonna cook, but we'll think of something or look something up. Um, because we've had our apartment for 4 years now, so we kind of wanted to celebrate a little bit. We had our little home
Ah,
for 4 years already. Otherwise, just kind of chill. It's kind of rainy in Tromsø right now, so probably gonna be inside for quite a bit. Just get good workouts in, just chill, clean the house, you know, do all those kind of things.
oh, as I mentioned, I'm weird, but that sounds like a perfect weekend for me.
It is kind of nice. It is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. Pia, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good weekend.
Awesome. And to our listener, of course, I will talk to you very soon as well. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it on your story somewhere, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you use. And then, of course, do us a massive favor, drop us a quick 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple, and then we'll leave you to it. I'll talk to you soon.